Your heart is racing. You don't know why. You're sitting at your desk. Nothing is chasing you, but your body doesn't know that. It's already flooding your blood with adrenaline. It's already tensing your legs to run. And somewhere in the back of your skull, an ancient alarm is ringing for a predator that stopped existing 10,000 years ago. You feel this almost every day. A notification buzzes, and your stomach drops. A stranger frowns at you, and your mind spirals for hours. Someone doesn't text back, and you assume the worst. It feels irrational. It feels like a flaw in your wiring. But what if it isn't a flaw at all? What if it's the oldest, most successful survival system ever built, still running its original code inside a world it was never designed for? To understand this, you have to go back, not centuries, hundreds of thousands of years, back to a savanna in East Africa, where your ancestors slept in shallow shelters with no locks, no walls, and no streetlights. The night belonged to something else. Lions hunted at dusk. Leopards dragged bodies into trees. And every rustle in the grass carried a simple, brutal question. Is that the wind? Or is that death? Here's the part that changes everything. The humans who survived long enough to have children were not the calmest ones. They were the most anxious ones. The ones who jumped at shadows. The ones who assumed danger first and asked questions later. A false alarm cost them a little energy. A missed real threat cost them their life. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that math shaped your brain. Fear that overreacts is cheap. Fear that underreacts is fatal. So evolution built you an alarm system with a hair trigger, and it never bothered to build an off switch. The psychologist Arne Ullman spent years studying exactly how deep this goes. In his experiments, people were shown images of snakes, spiders, flowers, and mushrooms flashed on a screen too quickly for conscious thought to catch up. Ullman found that people's bodies reacted to the snakes and spiders almost instantly, with a spike in skin conductance, before the brain had even consciously registered what it saw. The flowers and mushrooms triggered nothing like it. Why would your body flinch from a threat before your mind even knows it's there? Because the system isn't asking you, it's overriding you. It evolved to protect a creature with no medicine, no ambulances, and no second chances. Now bring that system into your actual life. You're not dodging lions anymore. You're refreshing an inbox. You're waiting for a reply. You're walking into a room full of people who might be judging you. Your ancient alarm doesn't know the difference between a predator in the grass and a boss who seems annoyed. It just knows a threat signal came in, and it responds the same way it always has. Muscles tighten, breath shortens, thoughts narrow to a single question. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? This is what researchers call negativity bias, and it isn't just a mood. It's a measurable structural feature of how your mind processes the world. The psychologist Roy Baumeister and his colleagues reviewed decades of research and reached a strikingly consistent conclusion that bad events and emotions simply carry more psychological weight than good ones of the same size. A single harsh comment can outweigh 5 compliments. One mistake can erase a week of progress in your own mind. That isn't self-pity. That's a survival algorithm doing exactly what it was built to do, treating every potential threat as more urgent than every potential reward. In the ancestral world, that bias kept you alive. In your world, it just keeps you exhausted. And there's a physical cost to living this way. The neuroendocrinologist Robert Sapolsky spent his career studying stress in wild baboons, and he found something your ancestors never had to deal with. Real predators bring short bursts of stress that end quickly. You run, you escape, or you don't, and then it's over. But humans, Sapolsky observed, are uniquely capable of triggering that same stress response with nothing but a thought. Worrying about a conversation that hasn't happened yet, replaying an argument that ended hours ago. Your body cannot tell the difference between a lion in the grass and a spiraling thought at 2 in the morning. It releases the same stress hormones either way. So ask yourself, how many times today did your body brace for an attack that was only ever happening in your head? This is where the modern mirror becomes impossible to ignore. Think about your phone. Every time it buzzes, there's a tiny moment of uncertainty, good news or bad news, before you even look. Your ancestors' alarm system evolved to treat uncertainty itself as a threat signal, because in the wild, uncertainty usually meant something was hiding, something was watching, something hadn't shown itself yet. Your phone exploits that exact wiring hundreds of times a day. Every app notification, every unread message, every social feed is a rustle in the grass, and your brain still can't help but check. Social rejection follows the same ancient blueprint. To a modern mind, being excluded from a group chat feels like a mild inconvenience. But to your ancestral brain, exclusion from the group was a death sentence. A lone human on the savannah, cut off from the tribe, had almost no chance against predators or starvation. So your brain still treats social pain with the same urgency reserved for physical danger, lighting up overlapping regions when you feel left out or judged. That's why a cruel comment from a stranger online can genuinely ruin your entire day. Your body isn't overreacting. It's responding exactly the way it was built to a threat that no longer has any teeth. So what do you do with an alarm system this old, this sensitive, and this wrong about the world you actually live in? You don't get rid of it. You can't. It's not a bug you patch out. It's the reason your entire lineage survived long enough to produce you, but you can start to recognize its voice for what it is. When your chest tightens over an email, that's not wisdom. That's a smoke detector going off because you made toast. When you assume the worst about someone's silence, that's not insight. That's 10,000 generations of caution firing at a target that isn't there. The goal was never to feel nothing. The goal is to notice the gap between what your body is preparing you for and what is actually physically happening around you. Nothing in the grass tonight. No lion at your door. Just a notification. Just a silence. Just a moment your ancestors never could have imagined, being interpreted by a brain that hasn't caught up yet. Consider how strange this actually is. You live in the safest era your species has ever known. Clean water comes out of a wall. Food arrives at your door within the hour. Locks, laws, and hospitals stand between you and almost every ancient threat, and yet you still lie awake at night, mind racing, heart pounding, over things that cannot physically touch you. A comment, a deadline, a silence from someone you love. Doesn't that seem backwards? Shouldn't safety feel like safety? It doesn't, because your nervous system was never updated to recognize the world you're actually living in. Evolution is slow, painfully slow. It works in increments so small they're invisible across a single human life. 10,000 years, the entire span since agriculture began, since cities began, since anything resembling your modern world began, is a blink to natural selection. Your genome has barely moved since the last ice age, which means the brain reading these words right now is, in almost every meaningful way, the same brain that once slept beside a fire, listening for footsteps in the dark. Think about what that fire actually meant. It wasn't cozy. It was a perimeter. Light meant safety, and darkness beyond it meant the unknown. And the unknown, to a body with no weapons but sticks and stones, meant teeth. Your ancestors who slept lightly, who woke at the smallest sound, who never fully relaxed, even in a group, were the ones who noticed the predator early enough to survive it. The heavy sleepers, the deeply relaxed ones, the ones whose alarm system stayed quiet, simply didn't pass on their genes as often. Generation after generation, the anxious inherited the earth. Not because anxiety felt good, but because it worked. This is why your body still behaves like it's guarding a fire that went out 10,000 years ago. A locked door at night still isn't enough to fully quiet it. A phone left in another room can still make your mind drift toward it every few minutes, checking, needing to know. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to fully relax, even on vacation, even when nothing at all is wrong? That's not you failing to unwind. That's an ancient century standing watch, unable to receive the memo that the war ended long ago. Now think again about your phone, because it deserves a second look. Every app on it was designed by people who understand this exact wiring, whether they call it that or not. The little red notification dot exploits the same uncertainty response your ancestors felt staring into tall grass. Is it something? Is it nothing? Your brain cannot rest until it knows. So you check, and checking releases a small hit of relief, which your brain quietly logs as a reward, which makes you more likely to check again the next time uncertainty appears. You are not weak-willed for reaching for your phone 40 times a day. You are a very old animal responding with perfect fidelity to a threat detection system operating exactly as designed. There's a deeper twist here, and it involves memory. Your ancestral brain wasn't just built to detect danger. It was built to remember it vividly, so the same mistake never happened twice. That's why an embarrassing moment from years ago can still make you wince in the shower, fully formed, fully humiliating, while 100 pleasant afternoons from that same year have quietly dissolved into nothing. Painful memories are simply built to stick harder. It isn't because you're overly sensitive. It's because a brain that forgot where the predator struck last time was a brain that didn't get a next time. So the failed job interview replays on a loop. The one cruel thing a friend said years ago still surfaces at 3 a.m. The near miss on the highway gets remembered in perfect detail, while 100 ordinary, uneventful drives blur into forgettable static. Your mind isn't malfunctioning when it does this. It's running the exact protocol that once kept your ancestors from wandering back into the exact spot where the leopard waited last time. Here's the question worth sitting with. If this system is so old, so mismatched to modern life, why hasn't it disappeared? Why hasn't 10,000 years of relative safety worn it down? The answer is that the system still works, just not the way it once did. It used to protect you from claws and teeth. Now it tries to protect you from rejection, failure, and uncertainty. Treating a difficult conversation with the same internal alarm once reserved for a lion in the grass. The target changed. The alarm didn't. Understanding this doesn't silence the alarm. Nothing fully does. But it changes what you do the moment it goes off. The tightness in your chest before you send a risky message. The dread before you check your bank account. The spiral after a friend leaves you on red. None of that is proof that something is actually wrong. It's proof that something ancient inside you is doing its job, just aimed at a world that no longer matches the one it was trained for. You can feel the alarm and still recognize that the building isn't on fire. That gap, the space between what your body braces for and what is actually happening around you, is where you actually get to live. Not in the panic itself, and not in pretending the panic doesn't exist, but in the quiet act of noticing it, naming it, and choosing your next move anyway. Your ancestors didn't have that luxury. When their alarm rang, they had to run or fight or freeze immediately with no time to reflect. You do have that time now. That pause is new. That pause might be the most modern thing about you. Your heart is racing. You still don't fully know why. But now you know what's really running. Not you. Not your day. A predator that doesn't exist, chasing you through a world it was never built for.